The sky bleeds crimson. Daylight surrenders to a suffocating twilight. Neon signs flicker to life, painting the rain-slicked streets of Shibuya in garish hues. A lone figure, Kenji, hurries through the growing crowds, his breath misting in the cool air. He clutches his bag closer, a sense of unease settling in his gut. Kenji quickens his pace. The crowds, usually a comforting hum of urban life, now feel oppressive, their faces blurring into an anonymous, menacing mass. He just wants to get home, to the familiar warmth of his tiny apartment, away from the unsettling chill that has seeped into his bones. The air itself feels thick, heavy with a nameless dread. Kenji reaches his apartment building, a nondescript concrete block nestled among similar structures. He fumbles with his keys, his hand shaking slightly. The flickering fluorescent light in the hallway does little to dispel the gloom. He steps inside his apartment, the door clicking shut behind him with a reassuring finality. He sighs, relief washing over him. He's safe now. He shrugs off his jacket and drops his bag on the floor, the sounds unnaturally loud in the silence. Kenji makes his way to the kitchen, his movements automatic as he prepares his usual dinner of instant ramen. He tries to shake off the unease, telling himself it's just stress from work, but deep down, a prickling sensation lingers at the edge of his awareness. Later, as Kenji sits alone in his small apartment, the city's symphony of sirens and traffic noise filtering in through the window, he can't shake off the feeling of being watched. He glances nervously at the window. The curtains are drawn, but he imagines eyes peering through the thin fabric. His reflection in the blank TV screen stares back at him, a stranger in the flickering light. A sudden noise from the street below makes him jump. He strains to hear, his senses on high alert. Was that a scream, or just the screech of tires on asphalt? He can't be sure. The line between reality and his fear-sharpened imagination blurs. He tries to distract himself, turning on the TV, but the cheery voices feel jarring, unreal. He turns it off, plunging the room back into an unsettling silence. Sleep is impossible. Every creak of the building, every sigh of the wind against his window sends a jolt of fear through Kenji. He lies awake in the darkness, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He imagines shadows moving just beyond his field of vision, feels the phantom touch of icy fingers on his skin. The fear is a living thing, coiling around him, squeezing the air from his lungs. He bolts upright in bed, a cold sweat clinging to his skin. He has to get out of this apartment, has to go somewhere, anywhere, but the thought of facing the darkness outside is paralyzing. He's trapped, caught between the terror he feels inside and the unknown horrors that await him in the night. Days blur into a terrifying, sleepless eternity. Kenji is a prisoner in his own home, too afraid to venture out, his every thought consumed by the unseen menace he feels closing in on him. He tries to rationalize his fear, to convince himself it's all in his head, but the feeling of dread is a physical presence now, a suffocating weight on his chest. The phone rings, the shrill sound piercing the oppressive silence of his apartment. He flinches, his heart leaping into his throat. He stares at the phone, afraid to answer, afraid of who might be on the other end. The ringing stops. Silence descends again, heavy and suffocating. Then, a soft scratching sound at his window makes him cry out, a strangled gasp of terror. He is no longer alone. He whirls around, his blood turning to ice as his eyes fall on the creature clinging to the outside of his window. It's a grotesque parody of a human form, its skin a sickly pale green stretched taut over a skeletal frame. Its eyes, glowing with malevolent glee, bore into his, reflecting the neon inferno of the city outside. Its mouth, a gaping maw filled with rows of needle-sharp teeth, stretches into a grotesque grin. The creature's grin widens as if it can sense his terror, savoring his fear. It presses its face against the glass, its breath fogging the window pane. Kenji stumbles backward, tripping over his own feet, his eyes never leaving the monstrous apparition outside. He scrambles back, desperate to put some distance between himself and the nightmare unfolding before his eyes. He's trapped, with nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Kenji, his mind reeling, stumbles back, grasping for anything at all, to defend himself. His fingers close around a heavy ceramic lamp, the only solid object within reach. He clutches it tightly, his knuckles white with exertion, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He knows it's a futile gesture, a pathetic attempt to fight off the inevitable, but he has to do something, anything, to try and survive this nightmare. The creature throws its weight against the window. The glass groans under the impact, spiderweb cracks radiating outwards from the point of contact. It's only a matter of time before the creature breaks through. Kenji closes his eyes and raises the lamp high above his head, his entire body trembling with fear and adrenaline. If this is how it ends, he'll go down fighting. He swings the lamp with all his might, the sound of shattering glass echoing in the small apartment. Kenji opens his eyes, his heart pounding in his chest. He lowers the lamp slowly, his gaze sweeping around the room. The creature, the horrifying monster that had haunted his every waking moment for days, is gone. There's no sign of it, no trace it was ever there. Only shards of broken glass litter the floor, reflecting the city lights like scattered diamonds. He stands there for a moment, trying to catch his breath, his mind struggling to process what just happened. Was it all a hallucination, a terrifying figment of his sleep-deprived mind? He glances back at the window, his blood running cold. A single bloodshot eye stares back at him through the shattered glass, its gaze filled with a chilling, knowing amusement. It's then, in that heart-stopping moment, that he realizes his nightmare is far from over. It's just beginning. Kenji stares back at the eye, a silent scream building in his throat. The eye blinks, a slow, deliberate movement, then disappears. He's alone again, but the feeling of being watched, of being hunted, is stronger than ever. He knows with a certainty that chills him to the bone that he's not safe, that the creature, whatever it is still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for its next opportunity to strike. His gaze falls on the shattered window, the jagged edges a constant reminder of the terror he's only just begun to face. He's trapped, not just in his apartment, but in a terrifying game he doesn't understand, hunted by a creature beyond his comprehension. He can run, he can hide, but the eye will always be watching, waiting, and the cycle of fear will continue,